For us, our data is infrastructure in the power sector because there are hundreds of millions or billions of euros of assets that are underpinned by Modo forecasts or data. I'm a big Ray Dalio fan. Anyone who knows me knows I bang on about Ray Dalio all the time. And so we run the business based on principles. Every part of our business has got a set of principles. We think that electrification of everything is essentially the biggest trend of the entire 21st century.
Hi everybody, welcome to the Devico Breakfast Bar. Here we speak with different people involved in the business landscape, share their expertise, delve into the latest tech trends, and explore the ins and outs of IT outsourcing. I'm Oleg Sadikov, and today I'm excited to have Quentin Scrimshire, co-founder and CEO at Modo Energy. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss new episodes. Hi Quentin, and thanks for joining me today.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
Let's start our podcast with a little blitz. I start a sentence and you continue.
Okay.
Entrepreneurship gave me.
Oh, grey hair.
Entrepreneurship deprived me.
A boring life.
My main superpower is.
I'm a morning person.
My main weakness is. I'm a morning person, right?
I think actually as I've done this job more, my weakness has become being really direct and forgetting all the softer stuff around the edges.
When I'm afraid, I
don't sleep.
Could you walk us through the story of co-founding Modo Energy? Was there a specific problem or gap in the market that you wanted to address?
I should probably start with what we believe. So we think that electrification of everything is essentially the biggest trend of the entire 21st century. And you could argue that maybe defense or healthcare is a close second and third, but electrification of everything is coming. And in that wave, there will be trillions of dollars of new energy assets built and connected to our power grids. And all of these energy assets will sit on the global balance sheet. And to do so, like any other asset, you need to figure out, are these assets performing and what's the value of these assets? So we try and solve those two problems with data science. Now, founding the business, my co-founder and I have known each other since we were 11. So we've been together longer than we've been with our wives. In fact, we've known each other longer than we haven't on this planet. And so starting a business with him was pretty easy. And 7 years down the line, here we are.
What's been one of the biggest challenges you have faced scaling a deep tech data-driven company?
I think everybody would have the same answer really on this, which is talent. We have an extremely high bar on talent, famously so, and we're very proud of it. But what we're looking for is people with incredible drive to work in the power sector and the electrification sector. So you need some core knowledge there. And then you need to be native with the next generation of data science tools, which is important. And then you have to have a massive passion about bringing these two things together. And those things are quite niche. And then so that the Venn diagram that brings them all together is quite a small subset of society that we need to go and find and then convince that they need to spend their life's work working at Modo Energy. And so talent is probably our biggest challenge.
As a co-founder and the CEO who came from an engineering background, how do you adapt to the demands of leadership, business development, and vision setting?
I don't do any engineering anymore. So I only do the CEO's job. And I think about the CEO's job very similarly to how I did as an engineer. So you have lots of different systems which are evolving as the company goes from 10 people to 50 people to 100 people to next 100 people. Every step along the way, the systems that you create have got different parameters and different restrictions on them. And so you need to come back to those systems and improve them, whether that's communication systems or vision setting or context setting or hiring. And so you're just constantly redesigning processes and systems. Actually, process is a funny word. I'm pretty allergic to process. What I mean by that is I think often businesses create processes that are knee-jerk reactions that slow the team down. And we try not to do that. We try and create processes and systems that accelerate people rather than slow them down. But ultimately, as a CEO who's never done it before, right? I've never done this job. I'm making it up to go along. Every time you have to come back to first principles and think about the systems you're creating and are they creating an environment where every person knows what they need to do and is really motivated to have a huge impact.
How do you balance speed of development with the need for accuracy and reliability in product that underpins major investment decisions?
This is a tricky one because as a software team and as a software company, we like to move fast and break things. Doesn't everybody? And so shipping little and often and testing is an important part of the development lifecycle. However, for us, our data is infrastructure in the power sector because there are hundreds of millions or billions of euros of assets that are underpinned by Modo forecasts or data. So moving a small parameter on our models can actually have a large impact on our customers and the sector. And so we have to take that really seriously. I'm a big Ray Dalio fan. Anyone who knows me knows I bang on about Ray Dalio all the time. And so we run the business based on principles. Every part of our business has got a set of principles. And for modeling and building power system forecasts and asset forecasts, which are crucial for valuing all this power infrastructure, we start with a set of principles. And everything comes back to those principles. So, for example, one of them is we build forecasts that we would use if it was our own money. So when you actually apply that principle, that requires lots of discussions around the kitchen table in our office saying, are we really happy to ship this thing? Does this meet the quality bar? The same goes for, we have a radical transparency principle across the company. And that really doing things out in the open and the way that we approach these problems is transparent. To really do that properly, rather than just say it and write it on the wall, but really do it properly, creates all sorts of unintended and fun, quirky outcomes. With all of these things, we take our role in the market really seriously. We have a number of methodologies that we can tweak over time, and then we always come back to first principles in any project that we do.
You're the first guest who tells me about Ray Dalio Principles using in their businesses.
I'm quite weird about principles. So I even apply it in places where people would say that's really strange. So my marriage for my wife, we talk about the principles of our marriage, for example, or the way that we're bringing up our kids. We start with first principles about the kind of outcomes we want for our kids and the kind of parents we want to be and the kind of lessons that we want them to learn. If you do that over a couple of glasses of wine and really think deeply when you're not in the trenches of parenthood, for example, about what those principles are, then it makes it much easier later on and it pays dividends. So I apply these principles all over the place. And if you write them down, you can always change them. That's a big part of me, and I do thank Ray Dalio for that.
Since then, did you start applying them?
Yeah, it was really his book Principles that changed that. And I read that just after university, so probably 2011, 2012.
And since then, you're using principles all over your life?
All over the place. It's a good discipline to get into, and it's not really, it's common sense, right? Think deeply about what you want as an outcome, write it down, and then refer back to it and modify it over time. And you can apply that in all things, your exercise regimen, your diet, your approach to family squabbles. There's all these things you can do it with, and it's totally liberating.
What's been your philosophy around build versus buy when it comes to integrating third-party tools or data sources?
I would say we are aggressively buy, and then we switch to build. And so if you're a vendor that supplies to us in our radical transparency principle, I would say this is how we're going to work with you, right? Which is that we will buy, in fact, every person in our company, including the engineers and the designers and everyone, has a company card. We use Ramp for this, but other services are available. And everybody has a company card and is encouraged to spend money on that company card to try new services. And what's really cool about learning to use in your career as a building things, or we have a research team that are doing lots of research too. What's great about trying out all these new tools, whether it's a SaaS tool or an outbounding, an AI tool or something else, is you learn what the best practices are in the best Silicon Valley companies. You learn about onboarding. You learn so much about new ideas for how to design your product. So there's that. So they're encouraged to do that. And then generally speaking, we will experiment with lots and lots of different vendors and different SaaS tools, and then double down on the things that work. And eventually you get to a stage where either integration with your product means you need to build it in-house, or you need higher security or some enterprise features. And often you end up building it yourself, whether that is user admin or graphing libraries or whatever. But we always start with buying usually 2 or 3 different vendors and trying them against each other.
Are there moments when too much reliance on automation or model becomes a risk, especially in such high-stakes industry like energy?
We would probably say no. I think there are some industries where if you're touching physical assets, if you're a nuclear power station operator, your risk profile, your tolerance is very different to what we are, which is we're pure software, pure data. We don't touch the physical world. And so you can take much, much greater risks. And so they're probably an event horizon of which you can't really push it any further with automation, but we're nowhere near there. In fact, every day with our team, we are talking about how do we automate more.
What excites you most about AI potential in your industry?
I think most of the framing around AI is getting it wrong, which is that AI is going to take jobs and AI is going to take work away from people. I think it's the opposite. I think what it will do is that the cost of doing certain activities in a business are too expensive for you to experiment with. Let's say we're doing a marketing campaign for the Northeast region of the US. You do a load of work for that marketing campaign, and that marketing campaign may be also applicable in Brazil or the Middle East or Australia, but you don't scale it to those regions because the cost of that is too much of a heavy lift. I think what AI will do is you'll do some incredible work and then you'll say, right, now we can apply it to all of these different applications that we thought were too expensive before. I'm going to age myself here, but I remember when text messages, SMS, were 10p or even 12p. And so there were certain things you would hold on information and then you would combine it all into a 160 character text message because you wanted to preserve that 12p. And then as the cost came down, suddenly you're sending cat videos, and the wastefulness of sending a text message with just one kiss in it 20 years ago would have been crazy. But what happened with the technology is it brings down the overall cost of distribution, and then you can start doing things you never even imagined. So in my view, the real benefit to our business is all of the things that we always thought we'd love to do, but they're too far down the priority list, suddenly become things that you can experiment with. And that's really, really exciting.
How do you build and maintain a strong company culture in a fast-growing tech company?
So we're very dogmatic about being an in-person business. And I get into lots and lots of arguments with other entrepreneurs and friends about this. Get the argument both ways. But Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, we are all together, human beings, in one of our offices. And we've got offices in New York and London and in Sydney, and soon in more places. I really think it's a blunt instrument that fixes so many problems in a business, but just being in person. And so my advice to, certainly if you're in your 20s and you're starting out in your career, I would suggest the best thing you can do for your career is go to the office 5 days a week. I'm going to be very unpopular for saying that, but I think it's true. And so for us, I think what's important is that we find time to be together as human beings. And then you have a connection. And when you over instant message on Slack or a video call, if you're clumsy with your wording and you don't get something quite right, sometimes if you're face to face, you just chat outside the meeting room and say, hey, I'm sorry, I didn't mean it like that, and we're all good. And in the digital world, you can't really do that. So if you bring everyone together regularly, it smooths out all the other stuff, and your tolerance for imperfections in working with other people becomes much wider, and that creates all sorts of magical things, in my opinion.
Are there specific regions or countries that you find particularly promising for tech talent?
We, since day one, have used what started off as a small team and now a large team in Eastern Europe, particularly Ukraine. And when we started the business, my co-founder and I, he's a lot more technical than I am. I'm more commercial. We've done loads and loads of research on the outsourcing model. And we didn't want to do just straight up outsourcing of software because we felt like we also wanted to be a product business. Now, I mean, the majority of our development happens in-house, but we still use offshore developers for certain things. And we chose Ukraine because we went and did a tour of the Eastern European states, actually. We went to Ukraine, went to Belarus, we went all over the place. And there was some magic in Ukraine about the quality of talent and the work rate. And I think that was one of the best decisions we ever made. It's not about cost. In fact, we pay global rates for Ukrainian software talent now. It's not like the old days where you could just farm it off to some cheaper talent. These world-class engineers and software professionals, and rightly so, they get paid at world-class rates. But the university system and just the grit and determination of the Ukrainian mindset has been great for us in applying that in our business.
What are your thoughts on the advantages and disadvantages of outsourcing in general?
Because I'm having this conversation, I am pro outsourcing. We're in our 7th year of doing it, and we've been very successful in doing so. And we regularly come together and we get challenged by investors or our board. Is this the right thing? There's a bias towards thinking that doing in-house is always better. We challenge that, which is that we can do more with better talent located around the world. And it started off in Ukraine and now it's spread across Europe. We have some folks in, all sorts of different countries. The pros of it is you do get access to global talent. And I think the ecosystem around outsourcing, it means there's liquidity in talent that there wasn't there even 5 years ago when we started doing it, which is really, really attractive. And provided that you can solve the time zone issue, so we tend to hire talent that was within a couple of hours time zone, 4 max from London or one of our other offices. I think you can build incredible things and have people really bought in long term to your business. There's a ton of ways you can do that and bringing them along for the journey. In fact, some of our engineers have been with us the whole time and we're very proud of that. The cons are that, back to my previous point, we're an in-person business. Apart from we have a subset of the team which are outsourced and they don't get that same integration. And that is a real challenge. That's a challenge for them and it's a challenge for us. And so we have to invest in other things around the fringes to bring everyone together. But I would love it if you can get all the benefits of outsourcing, which is that ultimately the best talent is spread around the world, plus all the benefits of being in person. So to put the numbers in perspective, about 3/4 of our business are in-house and about 1/4 of our business is outsourced. We have to do all sorts of tricks to make sure communication works and that people feel included.
How do you see the role of IT outsourcing evolving in the context of your industry's future?
Okay, so something that we specifically hire for now, which we weren't doing a few years ago, is being what we call AI native. In our hiring process, every step along the way, you are expected to not just use ChatGPT and ask it some questions, but use a range of AI tools and prove your integration with AI in a number of different ways. I think we're heading towards a world where, and this is almost taboo to talk about, where you are going to be able to do a lot more with less. And I think there will be an order of magnitude difference in the compensation between the best, more than just AI enabled, but AI dominant engineers and builders. And I also include product designing in here. I also include marketing, even account executives and sales. Now, you can do an SDR's job, an AE's job, a VP of revenue, an account manager's job in one headcount now. Those people who manage to crack that and enjoy banging their head against the wall with AI, even when it's hallucinating and it's not working out, and saying, I want to get really good at this thing, will end up being worth 10 times what the average is. And I think we'll end up with much smaller teams where, coming back to the taboo subject, I think the distribution of wealth and compensation is going to get much, much wider.
As we wrap up our conversation, what advice would you give to companies considering IT outsourcing but concerned about losing control over their projects?
I think you've got to choose your partner really well. I'm going to name drop. We use a company called S-Pro here, who we've been really successful with. I think you have to be a product business at heart. So all aspects of speaking to the customer, defining scope, you need to approach it as an engineer. So everything needs to be well scoped, well thought out. There is an element of you measure twice and cut once, right? So you have to do more work up front and more context setting. But once you hand that piece of work over, it will be done faster and cheaper and better, I believe, through the outsourcing model, which is why we do it. But you have to learn loads of hard mistakes of how you scope things and communicating up front.
Quentin, thanks for your time. I really enjoyed our really interesting conversation. Thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
If you enjoy our discussion and want to stay updated on the future episodes, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell. That way you will not miss out on the latest insights and conversations from the Devico Breakfast Bar. See you in the next episode.